LiSNTR production.
Hi, Natarsha Belling with you and welcome to the afternoon edition of The Briefing. Coming up in our deep dive, Queensland and New South Wales go head-to-head tonight in Game 1 of State of Origin. So how did this NRL Super Show start and what makes it one of the most successful games in sporting history? LiSNTR's sports journalist Adam Peacock joins us to unpack all the drama and explain how State of Origin has now become a multi-billion-dollar marketing and sales superforce. But first, let's check the afternoon headlines this Wednesday, the 28th of May. The coalition is back together, with the Liberals and Nationals signing a new deal. They split just weeks ago after the Liberals' worst election defeat in its party's history. They are reportedly set to start discussions on key policies, including nuclear energy and also a crackdown on supermarkets. Liberals leader Susan Lee says the new coalition team balances experience with new talent.
Our team is one of strivers and optimists, of leaders and listeners.
But speculation continues over the future of Nationals leader David Littleproud. Inflation's holding steady at 2.4% and the Albanese Government's calling it a win. That's well within the RBA's target range, but some economists were tipping a bigger decrease. Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers says it's a solid result in shaky global times.
This is the 9th consecutive month where headline inflation's been in the target band and the 5th consecutive month that underlying inflation has been in the target band.
And Debra Lee Furness has released a scathing statement after officially filing for divorce with Hugh Jackman. The Aussie couple split 2 years ago after an almost 30-year marriage. In the new statement, Deborra-Lee says, quote, "My heart and compassion goes out to everyone who has traversed the traumatic journey of betrayal. It's a profound wound that cuts deep." Hugh went public with his relationship with fellow actor Sutton Foster earlier this year. Now it's time to get into our deep dive on the State of Origin. The series captivates millions across the country, including our very own Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, who is in Brisbane for Game 1 tonight.
I support Queensland 365 days a year and 362 nights. And I look forward to a terrific game this evening.
So what's behind this massive NRL series and how has it become such a success? We chat with LiSNTR's sports journalist Adam Peacock on the high-pressure game that can make or break the superstar players of the future. Adam, game day for Game 1 of State of Origin. Can you take us through the history of this game? How did State of Origin start?
It's an amazing story, Tarsha. It goes back to 1980 or the late 70s when all of Queensland's best players were actually playing in the New South Wales competition because that was the centrepiece. A bit like with AFL is now, it was the VFL. So all the best players from around the country came to play in Melbourne, or theoretically anyway. So I think Queensland were a bit jack of always getting beaten when they did play these representative fixtures, because sometimes, like when they had a state like a New South Wales v Queensland, the Queensland-born players would play for New South Wales. And up in Queensland, they got a bit annoyed with that. And eventually it came to pass that they came up with this concept of where you're from, origin, State of Origin. And 1980 was the first ever game. And it was a big event at Lang Park on that night. And I guess if the first one didn't work, maybe it might not have gained the traction that it has and become this steam train of a marketing exercise and a big ticket item that it is now. But that first night was special. Arthur Beetson at the end of his career, a Queensland legend, running his side out. You had some young legends in Wally Lewis and Mal Meninga for Queensland, and they gave it to New South Wales, and it was on because guys who were teammates on the weekend for their clubs were basically hammering the crap out of each other on the field. So that's how it came to pass.
Adam, you make a great point there because that's what is incredible about State of Origin. And as a player, I don't know how you get around that in your headspace saying, okay, during the weekdays and during this NRL season, I'm playing alongside this great player. State of Origin, we are literally going head to head. How do they play that and then get back and play for whatever team they're playing for during the NRL season?
I think these days it's become that big a deal that once you go into camp with your state brothers, i.e. New South Wales or Queensland, that you leave your club tracksuit and your club allegiance wherever your home port is, wherever you got on that plane or bus to get to that state-based camp. And there's a perfect example in the last couple of seasons, and again this season with Pat Carrigan, who's a Brisbane Bronco leader, and Payne Haas, who's Brisbane Bronco leader and probably their best player. Well, Payne plays for New South Wales, Pat plays for Queensland, and they'll play through the middle in this State of Origin series, and they'll try and stop each other by brute force and turn each other back because they're the momentum gainers for their both side, the respective sides. And they won't be thinking, I'll go a little lighter here on Paddy because I need him on the weekend for the Brisbane Broncos. No, even a little bit like brother and brother. They go a little bit harder to try and get one over each other.
100% they do. Adam, so in regards to making or breaking an NRL player, would you say State of Origin is more important than playing for your team during the NRL season? Because throughout history, the last 30, 40 years, we've seen overnight one move on a football field or one, big biffo can actually make an NRL player into a superstar. Yeah,
it does. And everyone I've spoken to who's played State of Origin, we get that feeling watching it. And it's another example of why I'd much rather watch rugby league than play rugby league in watching a contest like this. But you talk to the guys and they say it is the quickest. Like Nathan Hindmarsh, New South Wales legend, he was on Triple M earlier this week saying, my first ever Origin game, I thought I was fit, but 15 minutes, 20 minutes into the game, I was looking for the sideline to say, get me off, I can't keep up. It's just another extreme level of intensity that you won't find anywhere else. Like even when they play international football, it's not like Origin. And that in turn, then you go back to your club and everyone says after Origin, even though you're a bit mentally and physically fatigued, once you've got through that after a couple of weeks, you're a better player for it because you've gone to that level and a level potentially that you didn't know you had. And a lot of these players who are going to run out in this series will find that again.
Let's break down the rivalry though, because it brings out a different personality in so many people. You find out the diehard Queenslanders and the diehard New South Wales supporters. Do you think other codes are now looking at the success of the, as you said, the steamrolling success of State of Origin, saying, you know what, for AFL, this is where we need to go as well?
I think it's too hard to replicate now. It's too far gone. And when I say that is really when you look at it, and Tarsha mentioned before about club football, it actually doesn't make commercial sense. It's illogical that you take the best 34 players out in the guts of a season and you go and get them to play in a series that means nothing towards the ladder and the premiership and the title race for the NRL. And they're gone for like 8 to 10 weeks in and out of their clubs, but pretty much they're gone for 8 to 10 weeks. There's not another sporting code in the world that would do that to its premium product, which the NRL basically is. So I think when you say AFL, I think the AFL competition is too far gone, that the clubs would kick up too much of a stink to say, hang on a minute, you're not doing that with our players halfway through the season because there's too much of a danger for us. We're paying their wages. Whereas rugby league, there's that acceptance that what it brings to the game and the eyeballs. And like you got people who wouldn't watch a game of rugby league watching State of Origin because they know the terminology and a little bit of the background of what State of Origin rugby league is. So it's a bit of an anomaly, really. It's just happened. And it's a circumstance that I don't think you can replicate in other codes.
There's so much publicity around this State of Origin series, and it's very interesting, the timing, because as we know, the NRL rights, the television rights, are now up for negotiation, and it could actually break all records considering it is such a lucrative deal. And the NRL is going to be very clever. Peter V'landys, the master deal maker, in making sure he gets the best for the game of rugby league. Do you think also that's why there's so much marketing behind this season of State of Origin?
Yeah, and they want to maximise the product. And Peter V'landys and his crew at NRL with Andrew Abdo, the CEO, they've done an exceptional job, I'd say, in the last 4 years of getting crowds not only back after COVID, but through the gates in record numbers. And that's making it an event. It's almost become part of Sydney culture now. I can't speak of Brisbane, but bit like Melbourne is with its AFL, like that there's a lot of talk through the week about everything that goes on in rugby league, and that's only growing. So, Yeah, when you get to TV rights, you then go, okay, well, our standard product, our week in, week out product, which broadcasters love because they want product to put on their television's service, is the NRL competition. But then you've got this extra sprinkling of something that is beyond elite. Where's the valuation on that? Previously, it's all been bundled into one, but did they split it away and potentially go with different networks for the different strands, like NRL over here and State of Origin over there? It's a big risk, but is it going to maximise the value? Well, that's probably what they're talking about in the next 12 months, about maximising that value. And it wouldn't be surprised to see it in different places in the future.
We're very interesting to see how that plays out. Let's talk about tonight's game. I know we're both biased, New South Wales supporters. What are your thoughts? There's a lot of speculation. New South Wales is going in as favourites. One may argue that is not a good way because I'd rather play a game as an underdog.
Yeah, and they both vie for underdog status, Laurie Daly and Billy Slater, and the two camps, and they don't want to give the other any ammo about, oh, we're better than you, because that is straight on the wall of the dressing room and used to motivate the players. It's strange things that motivate professional sports people, but that's the way it goes. Yeah, I can't split them because last year Billy Slater and Queensland had all kinds of problems with their availability in the forward pack. They don't have it as much this year. They've got some of their best players back there in that regard. And New South Wales are going into the game with a few injury concerns. Payne Haas, aforementioned, and also Stephen Crichton, one of their top-level backs. They've got little niggles carrying into the game. Is that what you want when you're just about to run out in front of 52,000 screaming Queenslanders at Suncorp Stadium? Probably not. So I call it 50-50. I'm more hoping than knowing that New South Wales will get it done. But I mean, I'm completely biased because, to be truthful, Tash, earlier today I put on a pair of shorts which had a maroon tinge to them, and I just admonished myself straight away. I said, "What are you doing, you idiot?" And then I changed, and now I've got a nice cream pair of shorts on rather than the maroon. So it's these stupid things that come into your head on Origin Day.
And you just had to have a good look at yourself. Talking about that, superstitions and all the inside mind games, what I find fascinating about State of Origin, the mind games start weeks before the game. Like, I would even put it out there. Are there games that they play about leaking stories and putting out there certain players are injured to then, it's all about the mind game, isn't it?
Yeah. What I've noticed the last few years, it feels like that the ex-players of both teams say things that feel like they've come on a script that they're kind of going off. Queensland in particular, they'll get news from the camp and then they'll try and use that to throw off. I've got no proof whatsoever on this. It just feels like that's the case because everyone becomes a cheerleader. Ex-players, when they're meant to be in the media and they're meant to be down the line and calling it as they see it, they become cheerleaders, and that's fair enough because it means so much to everyone involved. But there is mind games, absolutely. There was a claim of spying on a New South Wales training session during this camp. So
this week,
I mean, what would bring you to think I'm going to go and spy on the opposition because it's going to give me the absolute certainty that can prove the difference in the 80 minutes of a game of rugby league? It won't. It can't. But it becomes a great story.
Adam, just on that point, the difference between the old players, or one may say the veterans, and today's players, very, very different. I've heard some stories this week saying in the old days there were lots of parties held, they'd get straight back up on the ground and go and play. Today it is very different. It's all about nutrition. It's all about strategic exercises and strategic play. Can you give us an insight into that?
Yeah, like you look at both sides. I look at this New South Wales side and I think about half the team don't even drink. Now, 15, 20 years ago, if you went into an Origin camp and you put your hand up and said, "Oh, sorry guys, I don't drink, I'll just have the lemonades tonight," on the opening night, the second night and the third night when they're having their team bonding, like sometimes they'd go into camp and 2 days in, they're having an all-nighter at the Cross. Like, it's changed a bit. Now they go away to a retreat in the Blue Mountains and they're just like hermits. I don't even know they come out of their room off their PlayStations in between training sessions. I'm not sure, but very different lifestyle to a lot of these guys now as opposed to yesteryear. And that's part of the fabric of it. You hear, like, I'm sure all those ex-players who were part of the gang back in the day, that they get up there at these lunches that they've been having and dinners corporate affairs and things like that, and just tell some of the greatest stories of all time. There was one great story in New South Wales where in 1999 Wayne Pearce became the coach, and he was a non-drinker. So he decides, instead of going to the Cross for 3 days, take them horse riding. Problem was, a lot of them fell off. One broke a shoulder or a collarbone, Robbie Kearns, and Brad Clyde, one of the other players, got knocked out when he fell off his horse. And the story goes that the next camp they came in, they were back down at the Clovelly Hotel and then up to the Cross for the bonding session, not horse riding. So, yeah, old days.
It was safer than horse riding.
Yeah.
Incredible stories. Thanks so much for joining us, Adam, and go the Blues and go Queensland.
Yeah, go the Blues.
That was sports journalist Adam Peacock, who is also co-host of LiSNR's Willow Talk and Footy Talk League podcasts. And that's it for this episode of the afternoon edition of The Briefing. We'd love you to subscribe or follow us on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Natarsha Belling. Thanks for your company.